Get into Hustle Hard with George Billionaire. George, good day. How are you?
Holla, holla.
How's
It's
it?
your boy, George Billionaire, and Nyasha.
Yes.
You're always behind the scenes. But today you are our Capitan.
Yes.
You are usually the producer of this usual show. But as always, whenever life happens, we don't stop. We always have to make a plan and make sure that our ship is flying high. And here we are, you're standing in for Becky K, and the show must go on, and here we are.
True and true. So last week you talked, don't settle for average when you were made to be great, right?
Yeah.
This is not settling. And today it's don't go through life, grow through life. How do we get through this thing of growing through? Because I want to live, right? And I want to make it. But when it comes to growing through life, it's not as easy as it seems or as it sounds.
Yeah.
So how do, when I go through this thing called life, how do I grow? Firstly, what do you mean when you say don't go through life, grow through life? Let's start with that.
All right, awesome. So a big shout out to all our listeners, the pulsers. As always, we appreciate all of you for tuning in to the most listened to mindset provoking and changing show. Now, one thing I love about the pulsers, so many people have been coming up to me asking me, George, your show is amazing. How do we get to see and hear? Last week you spoke about don't settle for being average. You were born a winner. Where do we get this? So you'll find all these podcasts and videos are there available on my YouTube channel, George Billionaire, and you can be in tune with every single show we've ever done. So to people who might miss our live podcast, they can always be able to get it on that YouTube channel. And of the past couple of weeks, we were talking about poverty as a mindset. We were talking about, dare to win and prove them wrong. We were talking about focus on yourself and not others. Right? We were talking about association is key. And all these and so many more podcasts are there on YouTube. And I can guarantee you, when you listen to these, the essence of our point of coming on Hustle Hard is to provoke, inspire, and equip all these listeners, not only in Zimbabwe, but all over the world.
True.
There's so big a reach of people who are listening to this program because this program is equipping many. There are many who've started a side hustle. There are many who have resigned from work and pursued what they love to do and are now doing things that are productive and are making sense to them. So it's important people go on to all of those. For some of those who are here for the very first time, all of those are on that YouTube channel and you can get more. This weekend, as we were talking about association is key before we get into today's program, I was at one of the most amazing platforms I've ever been a part of. And this is called the Executive Interaction Initiative. Okay. And this was held in Bulawayo. We had a golf day. And this was started by the commander, PV Sibanda. And it's an executive interaction where there are 10 brigades in the country, and they all come together and meet. So it's business people with the commander. They're interacting and just getting to know one another to encourage growth, to encourage business networks, and just to encourage each other on how we can better become better individuals. So I had a great time this weekend. And to people out there, a simple question is, who do you associate with? What type of people are you hanging around which are helping you to become a better individual and a better person? And there's no way you'll ever change and become something else if you don't change your association. There's no way. You will always become a sum total result of what you hang around. And for me to be a successful, multi-award winning entrepreneur, recognized everywhere, this did not happen alone. This happened by deliberate association with key gurus in industry who have been there long before me. And I'm one of the youngest guys who was there at the EII this weekend in Bulawayo. And I urge so many people out there, especially those in business, find out what it takes for you to join such things, to interact and network with these gurus, seasoned people. Because one thing about our generation, we think we know it all. We think we can run businesses just by getting started and having a shop, a boutique, and having stock in there. But there's a lot of lessons that you are taught by associating. So I had a great time this weekend, and trust you me, I came back transformed. I came back with a whole new network of people. You know, there are some people who love to stay in Harare and not network, and they are introverts, and they think business will come that way. But in this life, no man is an island. You have to associate with people who are making strides, who are progressing, and who are going somewhere.
Question.
Yes.
It's now you're talking about networking and whatnot, and I haven't met anybody. Right, this is me.
Yeah.
I'm a business person, or I'm starting up as an entrepreneur. I have never met anybody, right? And you're talking, you should associate with different people, meet with different people. But I'm still at the level bottom zero, right? And I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
I want to do this, but what's the doorway of approach? Do you just go to this person do you just approach George Billionaire? Hi George, how are you? I really, enjoy your show, and I enjoy listening to you. I enjoy your business insights. Or do you have to go through some type of, how do you approach these key people that can help you get on the next level?
So I would say, for me, especially for me to join the EII, one of my local mentors here in business is Dr. Edgar Chandiwana. And he's a man who I looked up to. And he's the one who then introduced me to this initiative called the EII. I didn't know about it. But the one key thing I encourage people to have is what is called a mentor. Now, a mentor is somebody who helps you up the ranks of where you want to go. A mentor is somebody who's done what you haven't done. You've seen that this person is successful. You've seen that this person is more knowledgeable in something that they are doing. And mentors are not usually people who are aligned to what you do. I have many mentors. Dr. Chandiwana is a doctor. He does medical equipment, right? I have a mentor who is a man of God. I have a mentor who is, as long as somebody is successful, they've created structures and they're succeeding in life. A simple thing about success, it doesn't matter what industry you are in. Success will always leave clues. So to people who are out there who say, George, how do I join EII? How do I get a part of all these things and networking? Because so many people ask me that. How did you get so close to Dr. Philip Chiangwa, to, Philip Mataranyika, to Zodwa Mkandla, to, all these people out there? It's deliberate association. It's deliberate association. It's going to where these people talk business. It's going to where these people hang around. It's not you, when you meet somebody, you ask for money. It's asking them, like we spoke previously on the show, what book would you recommend that I would read that will change my life and help me to become a better person with where I am today? These are all important questions as young people. We need to ask the seasoned gurus who have made it, how they made it. And because we lack that, we think we're going to do it by ourselves. But one thing I've learned from a young age that has helped me to be who I am today. And a lot of people say, George, you are very mature for your age. And that maturity is because of deliberate association. When you hang around people, your conversation changes. The type of things you do change. But if you keep hanging around with a certain class and type of people, you will always be like those people. So for me, I've, at a young age, wanted to always be great, successful. Like last week I spoke, I don't think I was born to be average. I was born a winner, right? In my mother's womb, I'm that one that went and won that race. So I was born a winner. And what happens for you to keep winning, you need to hang around deliberately with other winners. They tell you what they did. They tell you what they overcame. They tell you their worst times, their worst decisions. And you make sure that you don't make the same mistakes that they made for you to become better. So that's one of the most important things I really always highlight here on Hustle Hard, that if you look at yourself and your immediate surroundings, you will never become anything greater than vanhu vaunotamba now. Your association will determine your altitude and ultimately where you end up. So association, I always say, is of paramount importance. If you keep hanging around with those type of people, you will never become a winner. But if you are intending just like the people listening to this program, to become bigger and better, you tune in to such shows. You listen to somebody who's done something and achieved something you haven't. And then you begin to, most importantly, apply it. Because I tell you what I learned over this weekend, there are people who, there's a commander who set up an amazing business in Bulawayo. And what that does to me, he's nearing his 70s. And he's way senior to me, but his zeal, his hunger to still want to do things at that age, when majority of people think, that's the time to retire and relax. That hunger pushes you to say, wait a minute, I'm here and I'm content, I'm comfortable. So association which doesn't provoke you or pushes you, does not change you, is not good association. So it's important as individuals that we make a deliberate choice. It's not about you walking up to people and asking for things. But when you see somebody who is successful, honor that person. Find ways to meet with that person. There are many people I've asked for lunch and I've had so many no's. But right now, after many years, we are the best of friends because I didn't give up on the first no. I followed them wherever they spoke. I read up about them. And when I met up with them, hi, sir, I know you started. I remember when I met Philip Mataranyika and so many other people, I knew so much about their life that when I began to speak, they could tell that this person knows a lot about me. And they don't want money. They want wisdom and knowledge. And I remember my first meet with Philip Mataranyika was all the way in Nyazura. So imagine a mentor can tell you, oh, you want to see me? Come to my place in Nyazura. And it's a good 200 k's away. But if you're serious to learn and you're serious to absorb such, guess what will happen? You need to take that trip. And a lot of things I've learned from many people. So when it comes to association, to people listening, you have to be resilient, you have to be persistent, you have to be consistent if you want to learn from these people. One thing about people who are successful, they will give you information for free, as long as you are genuine and you are hungry. And to people who are hungry, I remember a mentor who told me, oh, you want me to mentor you? You know the book Think and Grow Rich? Go and read it. When you're done with it, come, and then we can sit down and talk. And when I read that book, when I then went and I started asking him questions, he started telling me, open chapter 7. Your answer is in that book. So it was amazing how the things that I wanted to ask were all in a book. But us Africans, brown people, we don't like to read. We don't like to pursue nuggets of success. We just think, no, if they tell me, I'll do it. But sometimes when you read them and you do what they tell you, it's now made me an avid reader. I read every single day and I'm always learning and learning and learning from the greats who went before us.
Wow. Okay, so I heard you need to have different... I always used to hear, you need to have a mentor. But what I used to think was mentor is a person you meet in the same field that you are. But here you are telling us that no... you need to have different mentors in different fields because they all can give you nuggets to success in different ways, and you can learn from them.
True that. I can say something simply to you. One of the greatest people to ever live on this planet, his name was Jesus Christ. He had a specific association of people, yet specific people who surrounded him, who were more knowledgeable on things he was not knowledgeable about. So even as a business person, we need to take notes from somebody who we deem was, up until now, without social media, one of the greatest marketers and gurus who impacted the whole world. There's nobody on this planet who doesn't know him. But deliberately, he had a specific association in people who he looked up to on things he did not know. He needed a boat. He needed to associate with people who could steer a boat. He had money. He needed somebody who would take care of that money. So even as a business person, you can have a mentor who is an accountant, who tells you how to manage certain things. You also need a mentor who is successful in specific things. So the thing with life, we live and we learn. But our challenge, which the Word of God says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And that knowledge is acquired when you go to somebody who has something and knows something you don't, and you sit down with that person and they download everything they know. so that you can be a better person and more knowledgeable person in that. I have a great mentor, successful in law. He's the one who tells me, if ever you're going into a big amount business transaction, don't just send a quotation. You need a contract that's binding in the event this and that does not work. Because if you don't have such and such clauses, and that person doesn't pay you because there's no contract which is binding. You see, so it's important to have mentors who have been through the most, and they can advise you on how you can have a better life, because wega pachako, you don't know everything.
That's true.
But the greatest secret in life is always be a sponge, always be somebody who is absorbing information and knowledge. You know, I love to absorb knowledge from people, because the moment you think you know it all is the moment you actually begin to fall. Because people who don't know a lot will never ever reach the places others didn't. Wow. Successful people are always learning. You know, there are people who I look up to myself who sit down and ask me things. How did you do this? But they are older than me, because they understand wisdom and knowledge is not about age. It's about how much information one has. And to majority of people listening us today, what was the last book you read? Who was the last successful person you sat down with and asked intelligent questions about how they started? What did you learn from them? These are things that you need to do some self-retrospect about your life. Kuti, I want to become great, but who have I sat down with? Whose story do I know about? What books have I read that have helped me transform my thinking? Because, you know, one thing, the greatest book I deem is the greatest book ever written is the Bible. Because every quote, every book you see has a form of relation to already a story in the Bible. Right? All these other motivational books are just verses put in a different manner. But the most important thing is that people need to read more and more so that it becomes practical. We can't keep talking about Daniel and Jeremiah and David. There are so many other greats who have lived on this earth that did certain things that, you know, transformed their lives on the same principles. So I guess that's why it's important for people to constantly self-educate themselves and learn from other seasoned great people.
In terms of growth, there are people that, Aninga Chitoti, yes, I want to grow, but approaching this person who's successful always, they feel intimidated, not inspired, intimidated in a way, I feel less of myself. Can you speak to that person who feels that way? There are people that are like, you know, George, yes, I really, you know, want to listen to George, but I want to approach George, but I'm not as successful as he is. How would he look at me? You know, I need to be successful first before I approach this person. And you see those people don't succeed in life because of that.
You know, I think that's a word called fear, right? And one thing I identified at a young age was that anything that comes up to my mind, I don't want to meditate on it too long. If I meet somebody, you know, I've gotten pictures taken and met a lot of great successful people by just being a daring, courageous person. And most importantly, also somebody who asks intelligent questions, somebody who has researched. You know, in my office, I've got pictures of, you know, the people who made George who he is. And I've studied those people. And whenever I meet with them, I'm bold enough to step up to them. And, hi, how are you, sir? Say, you inspire me. Ma'am, you inspire me. I read your book, XYZ, and it taught me so much. Thank you for this, that, and the other. That way, it makes it a lot easier. But the moment you are scared of the opinion of somebody who will help you, you will never get help. You know, there's a story in the Bible about those friends who had a friend who was sick, right? And they made a plan to go on the roof and put him all the way down so that Jesus could see him. In life, if you're the person who's going to wait in the queue to meet somebody and fearful to approach somebody who can change your life, you'll never make it in life. You have to make a quick plan, because you can get in an elevator with the person you've always wanted to speak to, and then fear arrives. You know, fear and poverty are very closely related, and they like people to remain where they are. So whenever something great is about to happen to you and you are fearful, you'll never get what you're supposed to get. So for me, I'm fearless. I don't know what fear is. Whenever somebody says, "Aren't you afraid?" I'm usually the one to jump off first, so that I get rid of that fear. So when it comes to approaching people, remember, there's more benefit for you conversating with that person. I tell people, just don't go for a picture and a selfie. No, go and ask. If it's 10 seconds, "Sir, you inspire me a lot. What one book would you recommend that can transform my life at the age I'm at, that can help me to become a greater person?" And then guess what? The next time you meet them, "Sir, I read that book and I would really love to have a 5-minute conversation with you. I learned so much. Thank you for that." It creates something that you're actually an obedient person and that you're somebody who wants to learn. One thing I've seen with successful people, they don't want to just dish out money. They've got lots of money, that's great. But when it comes to information, just like we're doing here on Hustle Hard, information is free. But it's he who is wanting to actually tune in every Monday to get that information, who will be different from everybody else. So it's a choice. You can be fearful of approaching that person. You know, I've approached the president and I got a picture with him. He gave me his business card just because, yes, there was protocol. But, "Sir, how are you?" This, that, and we had a good conversation. And I'm so far different from people who didn't because of fear. Some are intimidated by the people around, but remember, he's also a human being.
That's true.
And once you talk, you'll be surprised. He's a human being. You are bodyguard, ne protocol, ne chi. But once you get the opportunity, "Sir, how are you? This is that. Hi, give him my card. Ask him to come to the office." So in life, if you do what others are doing repeatedly, you get the same results. But he who does something that others are not doing, he or she will always get different results. That's the definition of insanity. So whenever I see an opportunity, yes, that's the definition
of insanity.
Is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. So people always see people who they look up to, or see our agenda, and they never talk to them. But then when you actually stop, "Sir, this is what I'm doing, and this, that, I would love to assist in this regard." Guess what? Unotozoyambuka, vamwe vachingoti, kwaityisa kuenda, we never went, we didn't know how to present. But that person who went out and seized the opportunity got what others didn't get. So is it true with life. If all you have is a gallery of pictures with famous people and no knowledge and wisdom and advice, you're not going to be known by anything. But it's important to get information and be fearless to approaching these people who you so call and deem successful.
Now, I want to shift this question to you. You've talked about mentorship, you've talked about growth, you've talked about success. What lessons has this growth that you've garnered till now taught you, or what lessons have you gotten from this from this growth, from this boldness to grow?
You know, I think for me, a lot of people say, "George, you went to a good school. George, you had a good life." A lot of people don't know that my upbringing, I stayed with the Chabikwas because my parents couldn't take me from school at a certain time. I stayed with my dad's brother, Raymond Unengwa. I stayed with Constance Marimo. I stayed in a lot of people's houses. I stayed with the Charumbiras in Meborain. I stayed in various places. So my upbringing, people think it was bright and rosy. But one thing that I learned from the different houses I stayed in was a lot of lessons of boldness, of courage, of also, I grew up in Glenora and I was staying in people's houses. There was a sense of, I want a better life. I want to be staying in such and such houses. I want this lifestyle. So, you know, it got me to learn a lot. You know, I give a lot of credit to Constance Marimo, probably where I stayed the longest. She's an amazing entrepreneur who's been in business 20 years plus. You know, some of that boldness comes from association. By staying in their house, I saw how bold, daring, courageous, you know, she was, and how shrewd she was in business. And these are some of the things I picked up by when you want something and you put your mind to it, there is nothing you cannot ever attain or achieve as long as you have a desire of wanting that thing. And that's what made me become who I am. So to people who see me, Munwese is a sum total result of what they are exposed to. There are certain habits you grew up with as a child. You know, they say you cannot teach an old dog new tricks because if you say to an old dog, sit, to look at you and think what? But here on Hustle Hard, we're trying to transform. The word of God says, be ye transformed. Right? Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's where transformation begins. And for people out there to actually think, wait, life is not just about a job. Life is actually far more. I was born to be great. It begins by transformation in the mind. There are some people who, when they listen to this show, they say, that guy, just because he's an entrepreneur, he thinks everyone is supposed to be an entrepreneur.
I was about to ask the same question.
Yeah,
okay.
And you know what? It's a choice of what you want in life. Remember, what's your why? Why are you on this planet? Are you supposed to be living in that 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom house in the high-density suburb your whole life? Are you supposed to always be in commuter omnibuses going wherever you want? Are you supposed to take your child to a local school? Is that your why you think you were purposed on this planet? If it's not, it begins with a sheer desire to say, how do I increase my income? How do I become a better person? And if you don't have a why, you'll be like everybody else who has a job, which we boldly say is just over broke. They will never become anything great with a job salary. You won't. You live an okay life. But to those who think I was purposed for a greater purpose, that message that I'm saying today, and I consistently push to people, to say I used to be like you, having a job, but there's certain things that I was exposed to because of my upbringing, which made me say, wait, if Constance Marimo did it, right? If Mr. and Mrs. Chabikwa did it, if Raymond Munengwa did it, if all these people, the Charumbiras, if they did it, surely I also can do it. So it begins with Chishuo. What do you want in life? And to many people, they don't have a great desire. They have somehow managed to be comfortable where they are, and they think they have made it. But like I always say, in a country which has many problems, and thank God for the many problems we have in Zimbabwe. We have many. And wherever people are listening or watching us from, there are many problems in the world, which means there are a lot of solutions needed in that place. Why not be a person who then now creates that solution for the many problems? This is where I found a solution with Pro Air conditioning to provide a heating and cooling solution for people who are hot in their cars, office, businesses. And I provide that solution. And in exchange for that product and service, I get paid for that thing. So wherever you are, there are so many opportunities present in a country where you're listening to us from. But instead of just relying on one stream of income, I challenge so many people who ask me, were we all born to be an entrepreneur? I challenge people and say, when God created you, I promise you, He did not create you to be poor and average. That's not the intent of God. God made everybody to be extraordinary. But because of the choices you choose in this life, those are the ones that leave you to be where you are. And like I've said before on the show, when you go to heaven and you are shown the handbook of what you were made to be, you will be so disappointed on why you didn't take the opportunities whilst you were on earth, because your excuse was bigger than what you wanted to become. Your excuse was, I live in Zimbabwe, I don't have capital, I don't have the education, I'm too young, I didn't go to university, I am a widow, things never work out for me. You have every reason other than looking in the mirror and blaming that person. Because when I decided to go this journey of entrepreneurship, I found out my father never took me to university. I failed my O-levels, right? I wanted to be a soccer player. It didn't work out. There was nobody going to come and rescue me. And I had to make a deliberate choice to say, you know what? I choose the altitude I want to fly at. I choose the lifestyle that I want. So if I keep waiting for people to keep coming and paying, my dad then was, retired from work, and he had no other source of income. I had lost my mother. There was no other stream of income. I couldn't rely on my siblings to take care of me. On top of it, years later, I got married. I had twins. There was a huge burden. But the decision I made 12 years ago is the decision that's sustaining me now. And to somebody who's listening, only until you are sick and tired of average and you decide to take a step of faith into an unknown territory, which we call entrepreneurship or a side hustle, you'll see that that thing years later will be the best decision that you would have made than you remaining where you are, where you do not have, number one, job security and job certainty, because things are happening. Technology is coming at a fast rate. Companies are downsizing at an even faster rate. So this job you say you have, why not plant a seed into the ground now, right? And create something that will take care of you away from other people. And for me, I look back and I say, thank God to the deliberate association I had with people who constantly kept provoking me. Because growing up, I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. But because I began to hang around with egos, my conversation, my talk, my inner self-belief began to change. And there's nobody who will change unless they change their environment. Nobody. If you keep hanging around with the same people, I've got friends who are still in Glenora. I have friends who are still hustling at Zimex Mall, where I used to hustle. But because I chose a different path, because all of us have paths we need to take. And sometimes that path is lonely. Not a lot of people will support you. There will be a lot of people's opinions. No, Nyasha, you should just stay on radio and do nothing else. As long as you are getting that $500, $600, it's okay. It's better than nothing. Those are other people wanting to put their fears on you, not to fly high where you should be. But when you say, you know what, I determine where I end up. I can't be confined just to a one salary the whole month. And that's that, and I need to budget over that. And I say this because I've been both. I've had a job, but having a side hustle and becoming an entrepreneur and running Pro Air conditioning has totally made me become more financially free, has made me also now become more independent. I'm less reliant on other people, and I'm living a life, and I'm on journey to live a far better life because of the decisions that I made. So to people out there, you're not meant to be average. You're not. And the choices you make ultimately will determine where you end up.
It is 3 minutes to 1, and your time flies when you're having so much fun, learning so much. What is one book right now that you'd recommend for Nyasha to read and the listeners?
Nyasha, that's an amazing question, and that's you are applying the lessons that we are imagine. But you know, it's beneficial to everybody who's going to hear this. I would recommend 3 books for the benefit of others who may have read the book. There's a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. Now, that is an amazing book which basically states how Napoleon Hill studied so many successful entrepreneurs and the principles that they applied for them to become great. That is one of the most, if you read that book and you don't read any other book, and you keep reading that book again and again and again, I can tell you your life will be transformed. The second book, Good to Great. I love that book. Good to Great by Jim Collins. Okay. That's an amazing book as well. It basically tells you, don't settle for being good when you can be great. And there's so many people listening to us now who think because they've achieved some level of success, they are good. But they don't know that don't get too comfortable when you win an award or a prize. You now need to put that aside. That happened yesterday. And now let's go for the next one and become great. And then the last one by Jack Canfield, it's not how good you are, it's how good you want to be. That's also an amazing book that I highly recommend people out there, because that book will change you to make you answer what is your why. Where do you want to be in 5-10 years from now? You know, it will plant so many seeds of belief in you for you to become a greater individual. But as always, there are many people who are told these things, but they rarely ever then go and read them. So let's not just be people who hear and, go and download the YouTube summarized version. Actually get the book.
And read.
Go through it. There's something about seeing, reading, and absorbing that will change your life.
You know what, George? Time flies, but we'll have you again back next week, and we're going to continue. We've got questions. I'll definitely send them to you. And then we'll continue to learn and continue to learn. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And the pulses, we'll see you next week. Let's not just be hearers of this amazing word, but let's be doers.
Doers,
and keep good.
Not hearers.
100.4 FM. Harare's heartbeat.